we may be conducting more than a few meetings in this fashion. So if we experience some technical difficulties along the way, just bear with us. We'll do our best to get things back online if anything goes wrong. And we just appreciate your patience with us as we proceed this morning. We've got a pretty full agenda, so we're going to try and keep things moving along. I'm going to call it to order. Any public comments on non-agenda items? Hearing none. Announcements and introductions. I guess there are two introductions, hearing no others, and that is that we have two new board members who are joining us today, I believe. I know one is here in person, and that's Bob Miller. Thank you, Bob. Delighted to have you. And in all likelihood, Sheldon Bull may be joining us through either Zoom or one of the other ways that people are tuning into us. So if you're there, Sheldon, delighted to have you with us. Welcome. Based on the information that we're reading online, we do have a quorum. We just have one action item that we need to deal with this morning. That has to do with the approval of the minutes of December 17th at the quarterly board meeting. And the chair will entertain a motion if there are no additions, corrections, or deletions. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Thank you, Greg. Is there a second? Give me a second. Thank you, Mr. Bell. All in favor? Any opposed? The minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you very much. Okay, next we'll go to our really main event of the morning, and probably one of the most important things that are of interest to this board and our community at large. The college has been working diligently, many weeks and months, on the facilities master plan, and we're going to have a presentation this morning from, I guess, Mike, are you our Chief Operating Officer? Okay, I hope you heard that. That is one long title, but deservedly so. And of course, our president is here, Erica. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mike. You're up first, or who is? I believe the president's up first. I see. Okay. Well, I thought we were going to go straight to the master plan, but if we're going to do an update, that's fine. Okay.
No, we'll do that, and then we'll do an update.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I thought we were going to have technical difficulties. Feels like we're having chairman difficulties this morning, but we'll do better, I promise.
Thank you so much. For those who I haven't met, my name is Michael Bush. I'm the Assistant Superintendent Vice President of Business Service and Administrative Services. When Erica arrived at the college, she took a look at our strategic planning efforts and looked at the educational master plan and found we basically had the bones of the plan done, and they've been finishing that plan off, and I believe it's going to the board tomorrow night. Educational master plan. And then when I arrived last June, we took a look at the work that had been done on the facility master plan and found that HGA had done a lot of good work. It wasn't complete, needed a little direction. So the decision was made to re-engage HGA, give them some direction, and finish the plan off. And that's, fortunately, she assigned it to me, and I've been having a blast with it. Okay, so we wanted to do a facilities assessment, update the enrollment projections, because prior, the enrollment projections were very aspirational, and since that time, the systems projections have come way down, and they actually cap us at less than 0.5% per year from the system. And so we wanted to update those projections. The educational master plan, in line with guided pathways, groups the college into career communities, and it has a career community focus. We asked HGA, we engaged them in October, and we said we wanted you finished by February. So it was a very rapid timeline. The deliverable document speaks about the current state of affairs of our facility. It has guiding principles and data, and then it recommends a future state. It's available on our facility master plan website, and there's hard copies in the library. The assessment of the current state, we looked at enrollment, growth, existing career communities, existing facilities, existing outdoor space, infrastructure, parking, transportation, wayfinding, and sustainability. To develop the guiding principles, we had town halls. They had started this process with town halls and surveys before we arrived. We worked with the executive cabinet, other focus groups, the academic senate, and the student government. The guiding principles that were developed was clarifying and clustering career communities, increase enhanced space for study and socializing, expand food service, strengthen school identity, improve wayfinding, and increase parking. We were able to do most of that, but we're a little tight on parking around here and at our satellite sites also. Okay. When we looked at how we're currently delivering our career communities, we simply went into our scheduling system and looked at where the courses are scheduled. And if you look at the first one, STEM, the blue area, you can see how it's dispersed at 4 different areas on campus. And we call these areas, we refer to them as precincts. And this facility master plan, although it inspires a lot of design questions, it really did not get into any design of buildings, but looked at how the campus is functioning and where we should be laying out buildings and developing areas. We looked at our enrollment growth. We knew we had the 0.5%, and we've been growing by about 0.5%, but we wanted to dig down into the programs and look at which programs are increasing, which programs are growing slowly, and which programs are declining. And so we worked with our deans and we developed our projections, and you could see things like the visual arts program is slowing, but non-credit is predicted to increase rapidly. Now, to facility people, that enrollment in those programs equate to space. And these are graphs of space. The clear block, or just the colored block, is the space we're currently using on campus. And the dotted block is the space that will be required over the next 10 years to deliver the program. So based off of that, the architects came up with some recommendation. We need to renovate the R and C building. The C building is one of our iconic buildings. It's never going to go away. We're going to preserve it. We're going to use it. It's who we are. The R building is, from the business side, it's a real workhorse. It generates FTE. It's used all the time, but it's worn out. But it has really good bones. If you go in there, the rooms are square. The doors are square. It needs new infrastructure, it needs modernization, but it was built well. Okay. We know we're going to need an additional STEM building. Besides the Seraphian building, which we'll be starting In June, we'll have the demolition right after commencement. We know we're going to need an additional 75 to 100,000 square feet of STEM. It is very popular. It's a growing disciplines on this campus, and that's what it's going to take. We know we're going to need a new student service building. The student service building we're coming apart at the seams. We've put people down in the basement, which it was never really designed to have offices down in the basement. We have mechanical rooms down there. There's issues with odors. There's issues with access. So we need to replace that building. And by replacing that building, it'll enable us to align the buildings on Colorado. So it's more of a mirror. When you're at the mirror pools, it'll look similar right and left. We know we're going to need a new academic building. We have two buildings on campus that are really worn out. The W building, the women's gym, and the V building. Both
Can you
of
all
them-
hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay. Ghost.
Is there anyone who's not able to see the YouTube?
Okay. So those two buildings are end of life for the buildings. There are also issues with equity in the buildings. Neither one of them have elevators in them. So if you're mobily challenged, you need to enter a different building, go up the elevator, and then cross a bridge that isn't up to current ADA standards. They're too steep.
I am seeing
Also,
one
in the
from
V
Wayfinding.
building, there are no female restrooms. There are only male restrooms and staff restrooms, which we made gender neutral to give somewhat of an option, but there's equity issues with those buildings. So we know we're going to take those down. And we need some growth. So we're going to need another academic building in the center of campus, 125 to 150,000 square feet. We need to do selective renovations in D&E. We are going to consolidate departmental offices and create adjunct offices. We're going to remove the tennis courts, relocate the pool, and consolidate athletics and kinesiology. Okay. And then we have non-teaching spaces that are so important on a campus. We need places where students can socialize, students can study, students both for group and private for introvert students that just want to be alone with their work. So we're looking at different areas across campus for that. And then we need to renovate the planetarium and the boiler house. The boiler house is a really unique building. It's one of our older buildings that everyone overlooks when they walk by it. And it's pretty much just used to store things. But we could renovate that into a culinary program, microbrewery program, and we could put office space, adjunct office space up above. So we're looking forward to doing that building. And of course, the planetarium, everyone knows. It's another iconic building on campus. So this is our existing facilities, how it's laid out. You can see how the buildings are aligned except for the L building. It comes forward. You also notice how we blend into the neighborhoods. We have a couple of marquees in Colorado, but there really isn't an introductory space or something saying you're at the PCC, you're at Pasadena City College, especially on Del Mar. We had the U building, the Seraphian building, kind of with dash marks on it because we are going to do that building. The state was gracious to support us on that building, and we're going to be starting the demolition. So that one's going to be taken care of. And then you can see where the W building is, Lancers Pass, and the pool. That's the area we're looking for the new academic building. And Lot 6 is where we're looking for the additional science building. And you can see we moved. The other thing we'd like to do, both here and at Foothill Campus, is to remove the relocatables. And so we'll put a pool. There is debate on which side of the locker room versus pool. That seems to be in the big debate, not the big academic building, but the locker room by the pool. Whether it should be closer to the track or near the street. We could switch it when we get to design, but the current thinking would create a sound barrier for our neighbors. And it also, then on the corner, you could set it up for community use during the summer, rather than having the youngsters come through the middle of campus. Okay. So those are our new construction. And the student service building will be at least 4 stories, and it'll be set back. Our career communities get reorganized. You can see how STEM's precinct is all in one area now. Kinesiology has their area, overlaps with the STEM, which is also health sciences. And then we have, in the center, we have an area that's a shared precinct for the academic areas, the red. But then we have our business. So it organizes almost like a university concept of schools, but it's organizing disciplines and precincts. And now within these precincts, we want to have distributed student services and student support. We're still going to have the centralized function, but we want to have counseling and tutoring in each of the precincts. So students don't have to run all over campus to get services. They can focus in their precinct area. But there's things like A&R, it only makes sense to run it in one location. Admissions and records. Awesome. I knew that. She's always giving me tests, you know. Okay, one of the other things we noticed was the wayfinding. When you enter campus, if you're out on Colorado, you can see your pathway where you want to go. And there's sidewalks, and you really don't need a sign if you know where the buildings are. You can see it and go. But if you get in the interior of campus, it's easy to get lost. So one of the ideas in planning the campus is to have these thoroughfares or pathways, natural pathways of travel. So if we have a sign that says go this direction for the arts building, you'll be able to see where you're going rather than go around this building and turn left here and right there. So that's one of the things we're looking at. The other thing is all 4 corners now have a green space announcing that you're at the college. So we want to have a barrier between the neighborhood and the college. We lose the tennis courts to eventually get a parking lot, and we're going to recommend extending parking lot 4, which is a multi-level, and extend the multi-level to pick up some additional parking because we're going to lose parking lot 6. So we really don't net more spaces. Our parking study, when you go through the plan, shows that we're at about 85% capacity on campus. Our main problem is our parking permit, as Erica says, is a hunting license. If you have a parking permit, you can go hunt down that parking space. And often our students have to go into more than one lot to find the open space. So we're looking at putting on counters that will count cars in and out. They do have the technology to tell you which space is vacant, but that's very expensive. But at Long Beach City College, they just put the counters on. So as you're driving by, you can tell where the empty spaces are. And for those that are inclined to use apps, there is tied to an app that would tell a student which parking lot has open spaces. Okay, we looked at our wayfinding or our signage on campus, and it's of various vintage and various fonts, various mediums, from paper all the way up to marquees. And we looked at coming up with a design standards for our wayfinding. And then there was a desire to go to more symbols, the international symbols for things, because people just trigger visually on those symbols. And then, way too small to read, but we looked at, on the Colorado campus, the available lots. We do have some concerns out with lot 10 and 11. We have a new landlord. Caltech purchased those, and I don't think they purchased them long-term to provide us parking. I think they got some designs on the land. We have a 40-year lease, and we have reassurances from the campus that they won't move quickly on us with something, and we'll be engaged in the conversation. And they are also open to whatever development they put in. They'll provide some parking for us. But we'll have to see where that goes. We also have development going on Colorado. We have Hilton going in at the Ford dealership, which will be a wonderful opportunity for our hospitality students, but we may also be able to work something out with parking there. Or backing up, another thing we've done is we're expanding bus stops on campus, where the buses, whether or not we pick up one of the rails and have the bus come all the way to campus, or whether it's just the Pasadena bus line terminating at PCC. We also have our vans where we go not only to the satellite sites, but we stop off at the rail station and pick up students. There is a desire by some folks to encourage biking, but our students, a lot of our students live out of the area and they won't ride a bicycle here. So, sustainability. We're taking a new approach with sustainability. It used to be everyone wanted LEED buildings. Have your building sustainable. There's a movement in higher ed to move to STARS, which is creating a campus that is sustainable. So we're looking at the academic programs. What are we teaching about sustainability? We're looking, and it turns out we're teaching a lot. And engagement. How are we engaging the campus in sustainable practices? Operations. What are we doing in M&O and purchasing to be sustainable, and in technology? Planning and administration, and then innovation and leadership. And that's the STAR system, and it is a growing area in higher education. When we ran through the preliminary numbers, PCC already ranks at the bronze level. With room for improvement, on our buildings, we really don't have photovoltaic or any renewable energy. We have our parking garages have conduit in place to install that. We'll look to expand that. I continue to dance with my colleagues about putting things on roofs. I just get afraid of replacing the roof after we put $2 million of solar panels on it. So Tesla has developed shingles that are photovoltaic, so it's a possibility with our new construction we can look at that. So we're open to photovoltaic. We'll never produce everything that this campus will use, but we can make a good stab at it. The other thing is we used to have cogeneration on this campus. We had a cogeneration in parking lot 5, and where when you're running heat, it's generating electricity. And the pool heaters used to have a cogeneration on them. Both those cogeneration plants have expired. We cannot repair them. We had various people come out and look at them, and they need to be replaced. So we'll be looking at cogeneration as we modernize the campus to also generate electricity. Another big one, this campus years ago put in ice plants to help cool the campus. Our ice plants aren't functioning, and one of the things we're looking at doing right away is to repair those ice plants. And that'll off-shift our power usage. So we'll make ice when electricity is cheaper, and then we'll use the ice to cool when electricity is more expensive. So we'll save on the cooling of the campus. So there was a lot of good initiatives on this campus that somehow over time, for various circumstances, whether it was the economy or the Great Recession, whatever, we lost them. And we're looking to bring them back. Okay, these are the areas we're looking to demo. Some of them aren't major. The center of a campus is major demolition. The Serafian building's major demolition, and the student services building. They will be disruptive to the college community. They will be disruptive to our neighbors. But we will have to do that. Also, unfortunately, we cannot do this all at once because Erica wants to still run the college. She won't let me close it. So we're going to have to do it in phases. Okay, but this is how we'll look when we're all done. So our phases. We're starting phase 0, we call it, with the Serafian building this summer. Then we will do a phase 1, which will be the new STEM building and a small cafe out in front of the library. Phase 2, we will remove a Science Village, as we affectionately call it, and demo the Student Services building. On where it says 6, the west lot, we're going to put in interim housing. At one point, we looked at moving the relocatables that are in Science Village, but there's 2 problems with it. The first is they're designed for lab space, not really classroom space, so we'd have to really gut them and modernize them. The second is they're a little old, and moving them may not work out and will be costly. For about every 960 square feet, it's almost $20,000 to have them disconnected, hook up new utilities and bring it. So we're thinking of renting interim housing. So if we do that, we could probably move forward with the student service building in phase 1. But right now it's in phase 2. We'll build a new pool, and then we'll demo the old pool, and we'll demo the W building and put in the new academic building. Whether we leave the V building up until my recommendation is to leave it up until we have the new academic building, and then we demo that building. And we do the appropriate landscaping and outdoor spaces as we move through each phase. Then, since we have the new academic building, we can put dental hygiene over in the new STEM area, in the health science area, out of the R building. And then we could empty the rest of R into the new academic building and modernize R. We had looked at plans of modernizing it by floors, but the infrastructure, the HVAC system, the power needs to all be upgraded in that building. So it'd be more efficient if we could close it. Then after that, we would have space available for the C building. And the C building, we're looking to see if we can modernize D building for more offices, because a lot of the student service functions will move out of that building, including the health services, and modernize that into administrative space, and then we'll be able to return more of the C building to academic programs. Then we do a little parking lot, and we call it a day. So this, keeping in mind with planning and DSA, we could be looking at, to do really good planning, could take 3 to 6 months, and then we're going to wait about a year with DSA. DSA is overextended, and they've gone to using outside contractors to review the plans, which makes it a 2-step process now, where the consultants review it and then the engineers at DSA sign it off. So we almost have the Seraphim building out of DSA. It has been on back check since I've been here, where it'll go through one group, they'll back check it. And back check with DSA is where they have a preliminary, you submitted the plans, the preliminary approval, but they have questions, and more questions, and more questions. And we answer those questions, alter the drawings as need be, and now it's back check. We've been in back check for 6 months. So we think we're almost done. The last questions we got was, we have a diesel generator over there. So they want to know about the fuel tank, and they want to know how much fuel we store on the entire campus with all our buildings, and what our plan is for mitigating that in a hazmat. And I struggle with, why do you care our mitigation plan at facilities to approve these plans? But they get asked those questions, so we hope to have it out within a week, because now we're asking questions about non-building things. So we have all the appropriate plans, they just want to see them. So then getting back to our new construction, you're probably looking from 12 to 18 months depending on the size of the building. And then, of course, we have to move into the building and set it up. So we're looking at being able to do this over the next 10 years with these various phases. Okay, Foothill Campus. Foothill Campus is fairly beat up. We've really asked that campus to step up with our nursing program. And we currently have a lot of relocatables in Lot B. We leased the land from Edison for Lot D and C. And the building itself, the traditional building, needs to be modernized. So going back, we're recommending a 2-story building for 24,000 square feet to be built in Lot B, which will put a squeeze on the parking there, which means I get to maintain our relationship with Edison. Sometimes they're a little bumpy to deal with, but we will continue working with them to rent the parking there. The Rosemead campus, the existing building's 24,000 square feet, and we need to build another building in 20,000 square feet. You see here it says GSF, that's gross square footage, and so I look at that when building. Academic partners, Terry Juni, will look at assignable square footage. How much is assigned to a classroom? Because all buildings have areas that are not assignable. So we're recommending a new building. Rosemead has a few problems. The parking is okay now, but when we take out some of the parking and build a bigger building, we're going to run out of parking at Rosemead. We know that. Over 10 years, we will have insufficient parking. It has another challenge that is really an issue for the board to deal with, but we do not own that space. We do not own the land, we do not own the building, and we lease it. So how much does the board want to invest in modernizing the existing building as well as building a new building that one day someone could say, thanks, but we need our building back? So it's something we're looking at, something the board is aware of, it's on their radar, and there's a possibility we may be able to acquire the site from El Monte. But right now, everything's very preliminary, but that is a question the board needs to answer. Solution could be find different land and build a different site. But as you know, land is not cheap and it's not very plentiful in this area, so. PCC Northwest Campus up at the John Muir High School site. That's what we currently have there now. Similar problem, we do not own it. And we have a relatively short-term lease there. Erica has been in conversations with the superintendent to try to get a longer lease. The existing building needs over $1 million in modernization just to bring it up to a minimum classroom standard. And that's a lot of money for a 4 to 5 year lease. So, okay. So with that, is there any questions? Yes, sir.
Well, first, I do want to really thank you, Quorum, and Erica and all the rest of a really masterful plan here, and it's very exciting to all of us. Imagine the days and hours and months that you spend in doing it. Naturally, questions that come to and place a few of them.
Okay.
And not to try to put you on the spot, but just one is your enrollment projections, and I'm glad you're rather conservative in your enrollment projections. I shared with Erica not long ago some information which I've received from the Public Policy Institute. I happen to be on the advisory council, Higher Education Advisory Council, and as you know, the Public Policy Institute does some very detailed and careful research. They say that statewide in the next 10 years, high school enrollment in California will be 7%.
Correct.
But they did it county by county. And in Los Angeles County, they say the enrollment will go down 17%. I've seen those figures. So the only way I think that Pasadena City College can combat that is to have a tremendous increase in adult enrollment.
Correct.
But I wonder if it isn't really heroic just to stay even. So I raised that question just for you to think about as maybe being even more. I'm glad you moved down, and I wish we could, time when enrollment was increasing in the high schools. It was a great time, and of course, we all know Pasadena City College has such a great name that it attracts a lot of students from outside the area, and I think we'll continue to, but that's one question that you over in your mind. If we face with a slight decline in enrollment, that might impact your facility. Another issue, of course, is we're hoping to get a bond measure, which I hope we can. But once again, that's got to be realistic. I wasn't terribly excited about what happened in the recent election.
Correct.
I mean, so you'll know, I think you have a great, PCC has a great reputation, but how large the bond measure
Correct.
passed. Well, those are just some of the questions that I'm sure you've thought about, but I just tried to want to emphasize that a little bit in your thinking in terms, but I'm not, I know you've thought about how to place everything. And the final other thing I would like to say, both with Rosemead and John Muir, I see your hesitancy because those are all leased. But I was here when we did when we built the Foothill building. That was land owned by PUSD. But we paid them state money, not we. When I say we paid them, we got state money. I think it was around $4 or $5 million to buy the land. Now, Rosemead and John Muir are not going to be increasing enrollment.
Correct.
And those boards might just be interested in our buying that land from them because to suddenly, I'm sorry.
Suddenly for them to get, say, $10 million or $15 million or something like that, if I were sitting on those boards and I didn't see that I'd need that space, I might be encouraged where we, through state money, maybe we could get, because we got state money because we could demonstrate the need for the Foothill building. We got money for the building and we got money for land acquisition. So I'm just saying, naturally those always local boards are hesitant to want to sell land, but if they know that they're not really going to grow, and I don't think John Muir or Rosemead, either one, are going to grow. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're going to decline. And for them to suddenly get a buyout, and particularly if we could get state money for it, that might appeal to them and it would solve our problem. So those are, I know I'm just throwing out ideas, and I don't want these to be considered as criticism because, number one, I'm very excited about what you've already done, and I think it shows a great future. Those are just ideas.
Well, thank you. If I could respond to them, because you're somewhat preaching to the choir. You're talking about the things I worry about at night. And the decision on whether to acquire or enter into negotiations is above my pay grade. Okay, yes, ma'am. I do what I'm told. The board is considering that, and if they authorize negotiations, then we will engage. Our colleagues at Pasadena are, and I don't want to appear like we're taking advantage, but I think there's a win-win for them. They are in a decline. They don't want another private school, another charter school to further erode, and we run a complementary program with the dual enrollment up there. So I think we could work something out, and I believe the same is at Rosemead. But once again, at the assistant superintendent level, although we can come up with really good ideas, it's really a board decision. And whether the board is also open to a 99-year lease and just purchasing the building, that's another thing. we will need board direction on. So,
And as you know, if somebody owns the land and
Yeah.
they get the building,
yeah,
You know, I mean, in
Yeah.
other words, if they decide to take the land, I mean, to take the building back.
Right.
And they own the land,
Yeah.
you don't have any power.
correct, correct.
Other than power of goodwill and
Yeah.
maybe shame them or something, but,
Yeah.
but when push comes to shove, I know who has the power.
Yeah. And then also the type of bond we advocate for, or the size of a bond, is also above my pay grade. What the board has asked is for us to develop the need and demonstrate the need, which I believe this plan does. Another part of this plan is how much will it cost? And the construction alone is between 520 to 560 million. And then we have soft costs for design, inspection, and then FF&E. There is also this vague unknown of cost escalation when you're looking at a 10-year plan. We do know on a Prop 39, which is the 55%, which is the most popular bond, there's a $25 per 100,000 cap for assessed valuation. That $25 would bring in roughly 600 million if that's what the voters approved. So one of the things the board could do is say, we're going to go for a bond to do this part of the plan. These are the buildings we're going to do. And then once we do that well, we're going to come back out and ask for the second phase, because we'll have more realistic cost estimates in 5 years from now. But once again, that's a decision the board gets to make. We're presenting them all the data we can, and then they are the elected trustees. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Bush, how much did we just save the taxpayers on our refunding?
$11 million. We were able to drop from 6.2%, and it was a Build America bond, so we got a subsidy of 2%, or 4.2, and we refinanced at 0.93. So she is the charmed woman. I don't know how she went for a refi, had a moderate crash of the market, and the interest rates fell. We closed last week, and Piper Sandler, who used to be Piper Jaffray before they merged, thought it was a real good deal. And the market was pretty cold the day we went out. That was another one of those days where I started off, worrying. Then I couldn't find the right swear word to change how it was selling. And then I was praying. And then in the end, Piper Sandler said, no, we think it's a really good deal. So of our 21 million that was on the street, they bought 16 million of it. So, and turns out they were right. It continued to slide, and now it's a very popular municipal fund for people that are looking for quality and to hide from the stock market right now. So it worked out well for Erica. She's very charmed. Yes, sir.
Just two quick things. I want to be respectful of your time.
Okay.
With respect to the continuing issue of parking, in the illustrations, is that surface parking, or are we doing any building parking?
The Lot 4 will be expanding the garage capacity, which will be, high-rise stacked parking garage, and the rest would be surface parking.
I see.
And we believe that will be adequate on this campus for the next 10 years.
Oh, terrific.
And then what will happen longer term, there's still parking lots available to develop if need be.
One other quick thing. Where does technology fit into the facilities master plan overall?
Some of the infrastructure's in it, but our technology master plan is our third master plan.
I see.
So we have our educational master plan, foundation, facility master plan, and we just started the technology master plan.
Thank you.
Okay. And if I could go back to the enrollment projections, do you know over what time period they thought that we were going to decline 17%?
10 years.
10 years.
It was a decade, I believe it was 2018 to 2028.
Okay.
And they said that the state of California, and the only growth, by the way, in enrollment in the state of California is going to be toward the interior. The coast is, number one, already built, and number two, the price of housing is so high along
Right.
the coast, that's not conducive to families with children.
Right.
And so naturally, that's why Los Angeles County was one of the few counties that actually had that sharp a dip. They had 17%, as they considered over a 10-year period, high school enrollment would decrease by 17% from 2018 to 2028.
Yeah.
And so I don't know all the research that they
Right.
did, but they're a very respected research group.
They are, and it was convenient of them to do it exactly with my plan. I like that. We are, that's one of those things that I wake up in the morning and I go, "Eeh," and I'm checking our reports. We still feel we're very competitive in the Los Angeles area, and we do attract a lot of students from outside the area. And in fact, we have on our institutional research, we have a heat map that shows where our students live, and you can scroll down and say, from LACC, how many students did we attract or steal, depending on your perspective, and it'll give you dots where they all live. And we can do that for Rio Hondo. We can look at all the areas where we're attracting students with the hope then we could not really do outreach in those areas, but make sure we're still appealing to those areas and figuring out what they're studying and why they're coming here. We do know we have a large transfer rate, and that continues to attract people that are interested in moving on with their education. And we're going to have to also look at the adult learners. And whether it's skill builders or retraining programs, we're going to have to be looking at those. You're right, spot on with all those.
And to follow on what you're saying, Mike, Dr. Scott, in many ways, are taking a play out of your playbook, right? I mean, when you first began to build this college out, a couple of decades ago, you planned to take advantage of the county area, and since that time, this institution has, is an Aspen Institute, has turned into one of the best community colleges in the area. Mike is absolutely correct. You can attract everything from adult learners to transfers. The cost of four-year university continues to grow, and even though the demographics are not working in the favor of the college right now, from a high school point of view, there's millions upon millions upon millions of people in the area that this institution borrows from every year. And I think the opportunity now is to go forward boldly. As a taxpayer in the area, I know that it's not going to be easy, but I think this investment is correct, and I think the opportunity is there. So
yeah. And one of the other things about the bond, it is pretty apparent we're going to face some tough economic times, and a lot of people have said the recession's already here, and this would pump about $200 million rapidly. The size of these buildings we're looking at, $200 million into the local economy pretty quickly. So when we're looking at starting a building in June and then following up a year to 18 months later with two more buildings, that's a lot to pump into the local economy.
And by the way, if a recession does occur, construction costs will go down.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, it happened when I was here.
Yeah,
When
correct.
times were good, it cost more to build a building. When
Yeah.
times were bad,
Correct.
we really got to build that parking structure. I remember our cost went down about
Yeah.
$2 million.
Yeah,
Jim probably knows more about
Yeah.
that than I do, since he was- right by looking at it, but wasn't that true, Jim?
Yeah. And then we also have the other added that were very popular. Community colleges are very popular during recessions for learning new skills and changing careers. So I don't want to sound like I'm looking forward to a recession, but there's a couple of upsides for a community college.
The only problem in a recession is the state funding goes down at the
Yeah.
same time that our enrollment goes up.
Yeah, that's true.
We have time for a couple more questions, John, and then we have one from a call-in.
Okay. Is it still true that 65 to 70% of our student population comes from out of our service area?
Yes, it's 60.
And how does that impact our calculations or projections on enrollment? And
We, excuse me?
Factored into
Yes, it is.
okay.
Yeah.
But what we haven't fully, can I use that mic? What we haven't fully factored in, but we're in the process of doing, are all of our efforts to expand dual enrollment. We have dual enrollment agreements with 4 of our districts, and we have dual enrollment agreements in the works with the other 4, who are now all extremely interested in doing dual enrollment with us. The more we expand that, the more likely we are to have more in-district students. So we're really working on that right now.
And then we also have the Cal State Los Angeles Business Program that they're going to start offering the bachelor's program at the Colorado campus. So our students in the ADT take business here, and then they move right into the Cal State program and can get a 4-year degree here from Cal State LA. 18 months. So we're looking at partnering both with our K-12 and our 4 years.
So the question from Zoom had to do with, I think Ralph said it specifically, when will we see a 3D manifestation of everything, like breaking ground and?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I'll need to talk to someone a little smarter and more talented than I am. I thought I did good with 2D, but I'll work on that. But it is designed to have the taller buildings in the center of campus, so the skyscape will flow. So yeah, their neighbors won't see a skyscraper right across the street from them. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Bell.
Thank you.
Dr. Jonas?
Thank you, everyone. Mike Bush is a rock star. We're so fortunate to have him. Hello, social distanced people. It's great to be here. Great to see all of you. Hoping that our June board meeting can be face-to-face, and we will have moved past all of this as well. As you can imagine, we are actively engaged in how to keep the college running and keep people safe. And the thing that I've been focused on, and really my message to all of our faculty, staff, and students, is that the situation in which we find ourselves is extremely fluid. And the information that I have today is different than the information I had 24 hours ago, which is different than the information I had 24 hours prior to that. And so we've been sending out fairly regular messages. Last Thursday, we had our Faculty Flex Professional Development Day, and I streamed a message to the campus and talked about where we were at that point and how we were going to go forward, and emphasized the fact that everything is fluid, and really my mantra right now is semper gumby, always flexible. That's what we have to do, and that's what we have to be. So where we are right now is that you're here today because today is the last day that our campus is open to the public and open to students. Starting tomorrow, our campus is closed to the public and students. If you are not a staff member or a faculty member or an administrator, you are not supposed to be here, and we will have cadets around campus allowing people in and out of buildings. And a week and a half ago, we announced that on March 18th, tomorrow, we would be moving as much instruction as possible to an online or remote format, using Zoom, using Canvas. And we did that and then provided training and opportunities for faculty who have never done any of that to get up to speed on what that means and how to transition their classes. In some cases, we already had online versions of classes, and so it just meant expanding online shells of Canvas in, let's say, Intro to Psychology, Intro to Business, Intro to Statistics. What it meant was instead of these faculty teaching it, suddenly all the faculty were teaching it. In some cases, there was a desire to be able to continue to do face-to-face instruction, especially when it pertains to labs, to clinicals, to those kinds of things. So initially, we were very flexible with that. However, as the situation changed, as the concerns grew among the public health agencies, and even Governor Newsom giving his speech on Sunday, it was very clear that providing face-to-face opportunities for labs simply was not going to be an option. And so I have to say that the faculty have done an amazing job in taking this, and people who 3 weeks ago would have told you it's not possible to do whatever it is they teach online, suddenly they have a way to teach it online. And, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think what's really truly remarkable is that the faculty and the staff and the administrators have recognized the importance of putting students first and trying to figure out how do we resolve this in as quick a way as possible, and how do we support students. And one of the advantages we have as an institution is that all of the things that make us an Aspen Top 10 college in terms of student success are all of the ways in which we've been able to completely shift how we deliver services and instruction. The same passion that pushes us to student success in normal times is the same passion, the same ingenuity that pushes the solutions in these difficult times. So, the second it looked like we were going to have to move in this direction, we have a way to do online counseling in terms of advising called Cranium Cafe. Not all of our counselors are trained in it. Now they're trained in it. And that's how we're going to offer online advising. We are 2 folks in the Math Success Center, or 2 faculty in the Writing Center have come together. They've come up with ways to support students online. And I could name a whole host of them. Where we're still experiencing challenges, though, are in our clinical-based programs, because there is a lot of instruction that happens in a clinical setting. Understandably, hospitals are turning our students away, not because they have an issue with the students, but because they don't have enough personal protection equipment for even their own staff and doctors. So they can't actually outfit our students while they've got these issues. We have reached out. I signed on to a letter that went to the Board of Registered Nursing asking for some sort of flexibility when it comes to the amount of lab time versus clinical time. Of course, that request has now been blown apart by the fact that we also can't have our allied health lab open. So we're doing things on both a local level as well as a state advocacy level to try to get as much flexibility. There have been questions about, well, maybe we could make some of that clinical time up. Maybe we can. Right now, our campus is closed to the public and instruction is online until Monday, April 20th, at least right now. We will continue to visit that decision as more information becomes available. Now, some institutions, some major institutions, UCLA, USC, and other large institutions have basically said everything's online for the rest of the semester. I'm not inclined to do that because if there's any possibility that we can bring students back onto campus and serve them directly, I want to be able to do that. But if people already have a mindset that it's done until June, if I can come back May 10th and say, everybody come back, we're going to serve students, we're going to be able to have that graduation that we're talking about, I want to be able to do that. It's harder to bring people back than it is to keep pushing the date out. You can imagine I've gotten a ton of email from students, from parents. One solution that was sent to me yesterday by a student who said she had a lot of support from other students was that we should just assign every student an A in every class they're in right now and be done with the semester, I said, well, that's an interesting one. Not sure we're going to go there, but okay. But, and that was, we've had a lot, let's put it that way. And as I've said over and over again, there's no playbook for this. So we're doing the best we can. My executive team and I meet about once a day for an hour, 2 hours, just to look at the coming up things. The challenge we have now, of course, relates to the desire or the suggestion or the directive that anybody who's over the age of 65 with an underlying health condition really needs to be at home. They need to home isolate. And the governor talked about a lot of task forces that are at work, and I think we'll be seeing a lot of guidance come out today because he referenced Tuesday a lot. I was not the only CEO across the state texting Eloy Oakley, the chancellor, on Sunday saying, so we watched the governor, are we going to get some guidance? And at 10:41 on Sunday night, some guidance came from the chancellor's office, and I think we'll get more today. Specifically, we'll be getting guidance on what do we do if students want to withdraw? Can they withdraw now? Will they get a refund? And part of that has to do with the student in the moment. Part of that has to do with suggestions that maybe we could encourage students to take classes pass, no pass if they're not comfortable with doing online learning. Well, the challenge with that is that there are lots of classes out there where they can't take it pass, no pass because the UCs and the CSUs will not accept a pass, no pass grade in that class. So we are working with our partners in the university system, and as I understand it, we're supposed to be getting some guidance today that will help us with how to advise students about whether or not that is a good idea for them to switch to that. And then finally, I just want to say that one of our bigger challenges too is that getting back to the goal of having anybody who's 65 or with an underlying health condition go home, at least right now, what we're having them do, we're trying to see how many people we can have work remotely. So do they have a job? Do they have tasks that can be done in a remote setting? We also have the challenge of people who have children at home because the K-12 system is closed. And if they are home and they don't feel like they can work, we are liberalizing the use of sick, vacation, and compensatory time, any comp time that they've earned. It is entirely possible that the system, that the governor will come and say, if you've sent people home because of these things, you can pay them and they don't have to use their leave time or whatever. They haven't said that yet. So what we're doing is trying to liberalize how we do things in terms of how people use leave time and make as many opportunities for remote work as possible. So I can see I'm getting the hook over here. So I guess, I started out my conversation on Thursday by saying that John Lennon once wrote in a lyric, life is what happens when you're just making plans, okay? So life has happened to us as we had some awesome plans for the spring, but if we all put our collective heads together, if we're open to every idea that comes our way, if we try to put students in the center, we're gonna be okay, and Semper Gumby. So there you have it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I see Dr. Bush getting up and getting ready to make a run for it, maybe? So before you go, I just want to say that as I was thanking Dr. Bush for his presentation, I misspoke with his last name, and my apologies. So, Dr. Bush, thank you very much for your presentation today. Please, Pete. Thank you. Next, we have the trustee liaison report. Typically, Hoyt Hilsman does that report. Board President Jim Osterling has agreed to pinch hit, and he's going to step in and give us a brief update. Thank you, Jim.
Let me first of all start out by saying I Google searched, "May you live in interesting times," and I think we all know that that's an ancient Chinese proverb. What I didn't know, what I learned today, was it was made popular in contemporary times in a famous speech given by one of my personal heroes growing up, Senator Robert F. Kennedy. So he's the one that made it popular in contemporary times. And of course, we do live in interesting times, and I do want to mention that we are in uncharted territory here. I've had the pleasure, and it has been a pleasure, of speaking with our superintendent, Androgenis, on a daily and sometimes even more frequent basis. And what I can tell you is that throughout this entire crisis in uncharted waters, her top priority has been for our students, trying to preserve their academic path, but at the same time balance that with the safety that this coronavirus has brought on. And it has been an incredibly fluid situation, and I've marveled as each day unfolds and the situation changes, how she has consistently and steadily pivoted to adjust to that. So Erica, thank you very much. You've done an outstanding job in just unprecedented times. We can't thank you enough for your leadership at this point in time. Needless to say, she's had folks barraging her, telling her she's moving too quickly. She's had folks telling her she's moving too slowly, and she's had to navigate that and take in all of that input and figure out what's best for the institution and, again, for our students. And I think she's done an admirable job of that. Tomorrow, let me next say that unfortunately we're going to be losing the services of Hoyt Hilsman. He and everybody at the foundation knows this. Hoyt served with distinction on the board and was our liaison to the foundation, and I can't say enough thanks for Hoyt and his role. Big shoes to be filled, and he will be missed. Lastly, we're going to have our final in-person Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow night for the foreseeable future. Erica will give us the rules of the road. Some of the trustees will be in attendance, some won't. We're going to allow public comment, but not public attendance. Am I correct about that? Right. Yeah. And some of the staff will be here, and we're going to do the best we can to do the social distancing and keep the size of the gathering down to meet all the state and local requirements. And then we're also going to get set up for Zoom technology so we can conduct our future board meetings in a remote fashion until the situation changes. And then lastly, the single most important initiative that the trustees are looking at is the one that we know the foundation will be involved in, and that's the facilities master plan. And we just had a really excellent presentation of that by Dr. Bush. And I wanted to give the trustees' perspective, or at least one trustee's perspective, on Dr. Scott's questions, because he had a lot of important issues head on. And I will give you my personal perspective and where I think the consensus of the board is, but I can only speak as one trustee. The first issue, Dr. Scott, is enrollment decline, and we're acutely aware of those statistics that you mentioned. And I would also offer that there is one other really important trend or change that has the potential to counterbalance enrollment decline, and that is we have a very strong initiative from Chancellor Ucla to increase our career and technical education vocational certificates. When you combine that with the decline in private for-profit vocational schools due to declines in federal funding for them, the loan programs, we think that the community colleges have an opportunity to play an important role in filling that gap, and that could also help to offset the demographic declines that you mentioned. And that also would look differently as to how the campus looks and the buildings look, so it has an impact on the facilities master plan. The next thing that we have to look at is bond measures and the likelihood of passage before this coronavirus scare and before the Prop 13 results at statewide. I think we were all highly confident that in our community, the Pasadena City College District would support a bond and get to the necessary 55% if we proposed a plan that was rational in light of potential enrollment declines. I was one of the people, that was 4 years ago, that was opposed to the facilities master plan or the bond issuance that was proposed for $1 billion worth of improvements and an $888 million bond issue, because I felt it was too much and it would have increased our facilities on campus by about 50%, our FAR, our square footage, and I felt that was too much in light of these demographic trends, which we knew about then, and now we can really see them playing out now. I think if we present to our community a bond measure that does not greatly increase the square footage on the campus, and that's what this plan entails, and if it's a responsible number, I think and I hope that will still be well received by our community. Dr. Bush mentioned that our remote facilities, we don't want to just increase our space on campus here, but we also want to increase it in our satellite locations where we can. And myself personally, I'm not in favor of us making capital improvements on land that's under a short-term lease. So we've encouraged Dr. Androgenis to either acquire these facilities, acquire the land in these remote locations, and it would be a win-win and an opportunity for those other entities where we're leasing the land. Or I'm also equally open to a very long-term land lease. To me, a 60 to 90-year land lease is the same equivalent as owning the land. And just because of the nuances of K-12 school financing, they actually come out better in a long-term lease situation versus an acquisition. But we're open to either one. But I would not want us spending our money or our taxpayers' money on facilities on short-term leases with the potential of losing those. So those are some of the perspectives that the trustees have. Their support for this plan, I think I can say, is very high. And then lastly, we're in uncharted territories here. I just saw the UCLA economic forecast, which, needless to say, has radically changed, and they're projecting a 6.5% decline in our GDP in the, I believe it's the second quarter, whereas before, needless to say, we had a modest expansion and a smaller decline than that in the third quarter. So we're just going to have to keep marching forward with these plans and then see what the climate is like, the economic climate and the health climate, and the mood of our voters as we prepare for a November 2020 bond issuance. And I see the hook over there. And that concludes my remarks. So thank you for letting me speak on behalf of the trustees. Thank you, Bill.
Just to continue the thought about finances and investments, boy, we've really had a tumultuous couple of days in the markets, and I think Wade is going to give us a brief update on our financials, and in particular, some of the information that he's gathered from our portfolio managers from, I guess, Swan. So hopefully Wade's there. Hello, Wade. Our financials, and in particular, some of the information that he's gathered from our portfolio managers. That's not Wade.
I did. Chris, can you hear me?
Hopefully it's there. Hello, Wade.
Hey, how is everyone today? I have two things I want to talk about. First is financials on pages 16 to 24. This is mundane and totally uneventful. We're on track with regard to budget year to date. So
and in particular, some of the information that he's gathered.
Can you still?
Chris, can you hear me? Hopefully it's there. Hello, Wade.
Hey, how is everyone today? I have two things I want to talk about. First is financials on pages 16 to 24. Chris, I'm getting all sorts of feedback. So back to financials, we're on track with budget year to date. Our cash balances are in line with historical levels. With regard to our investment portfolio and the coronavirus impact, I think everybody's hit on the same thing. It's a very fluid situation. I'll try and provide you with a little bit of context. If you look on page 10 of your package, you'll see a letter from Peter Boyle at Clifford Swan. He's the person we see on our quarterly meetings. I think his letter it's probably 2 weeks old now, but I think it still hits the right points at the end of the day. You know, this is unsettling for all of us, both personally and professionally, certainly with regard to the endowment, with regard to what I do day to day. I'm a commercial banker. And then with regard to my own personal portfolio. And this time is different. You know, we've had situations in the past, and I've looked at some research brought up by Capital Group and one of the groups within my bank. You know, we had SARS in 2003, H1N1 in 2009, and Ebola in 2014. You know, we've seen dips from that. The market has usually come back fairly strongly a year or two after the market has gone down. You know, just to give you some context, you know, market declines of 10%, you know, usually happen once a year. I was kind of surprised by that myself. Declines of 15% in the stock market usually happens once every 4 years. And then declines of 20% plus happen once every 6 years, and they usually last for just over a year. In this case, I did some math this morning. It looks like the stock market, the Dow and the S&P are both down about 30%. The last time we've had declines like that was 2018, and I no way discussed it. I told you I couldn't tell you how it was going to end or when. It did end and got better, and now here we are again. But as I said earlier, post-virus periods, if you look back historically, resolve themselves with equity prices going up, and that usually takes a year or two after the virus comes out, and then once the situation's been resolved. If you look back to what Peter wrote, you know, his investment philosophy, our investment philosophy, is cited in that last page, and I think it really goes to, we need to have a long-term perspective. We're not short-term investors. We don't invest to time the market, and we do have a diversified portfolio. So if you look in your packet, there's January, I think they're January and February results. You know, the stock market was off dramatically. We also have a fixed income portfolio that helps buffer our equity exposures to a certain degree. And I think you'll see that if you look through the numbers there. And I think, as Erica said, the situation is fluid, and we really don't have a playbook for this. We can look back at history. I've been doing this for a long time. I've never seen anything quite like this, and I'm sure everybody else would say the same thing. So at this point, that's all I have in terms of an update. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Wade? Wade, thank you very much. No, you have no questions. Did you hear that? Oh, well, am I muted?
Thanks, everyone.
Next, we're going to go to Communications and Public Relations, and Ralph Framolino is online, and hopefully we can...
Hey, how is everyone today? Things I want to talk about. First is financial.
Well, am I muted?
Thanks, everyone.
Next, we're going to go to Communications and Public Relations, and Ralph Framolino is online, and hopefully we can...
Hey, how is everyone today?
Okay.
Things I want to talk about. First is financial.
Well, am I muted?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Thanks, everyone.
Next, we're going to go to Communications and Public Relations, and Ralph Framolino is online, and hopefully we can...
Hey, how is everyone today?
Well, there's a bit of delay here.
First is financial.
Well, am I muted?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to speak. Well, obviously, in times that are very turbulent and tumultuous, we need to communicate very clearly.
Ralph Framolino is online, and hopefully we can...
So we have established a template of a digital newsletter. This gets information out immediately to people, to those who we have their emails for. We're expanding that through social media. And all I can tell you is that this is a very fluid situation. We're going to do the best we can to keep people informed. We have established a template of a digital newsletter. And if I sound like I'm talking from Mars, it's because I'm hearing all sorts of voices around my head. To those who we have their emails for, we're expanding that through social media. Although this may be a secondary concern right now, I've also...
Is he listening to the live stream? Oh, yeah. You know how when you call in the radio? Yeah. If I unplug you, can you turn off the live stream? That's what we're hearing on our side, and that's what we can't hear you. How's YouTube? Ralph, can you hear me? Wave your hand. Hey, your YouTube's off, right?
Not
Not if your YouTube is off.
Now my YouTube is off.
Hey now. Hey.
All right, so sorry about that. All right, thank you, Bobby. Okay, let's start again. We have established a great platform to be in touch with everybody that's connected to the foundation through email, and that's our digital newsletter. In times that are like this, it's very, very, very important to communicate clearly with people who are our supporters. And we will work with her and with Bobby and her crew to be able to instantaneously tell people what's happening. Obviously, we had plans that are probably going to have to be shelved right now Those plans include some messaging with the Business Council. I don't know how the chair feels about that. I've sent some talking points to him, and that will be for him to take up. But we have a very important tool, and we're going to continue using it. This is a highly unusual situation, obviously, and so we'll work with Bobby and her staff to be in touch with our constituency. I don't know if Clara, if you want to add anything to that. We're going to have a communications committee meeting here pretty quickly, probably virtual as well, to discuss some contingency plans. But we are at your disposal. It's important that we are clear and we tell people what's happening with the college and with our campaign. We're still expecting the Tournament of Roses to come out with their final number, so that's going to be good news. But from that, I'll hand it over to Clara if she has any additional comments.
Okay. I think that Ralph's presentation is perfect, and we have made tremendous inroads in creating a platform that is regular, periodic, and that very quickly can turn a story into online and digital media. And we had even bigger plans for the immediate future, but as Ralph said, we need to table those. And I think that the most important thing right now is the selection of the messaging. I think we need to understand or to discover what is the messaging that we will be sending to donors during these difficult times. I myself don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's important that we had some conversations with Bobby and Chris and perhaps Dr. Andrew Jonas to decide the appropriate messaging for these times. That's all that I would like to say at this point.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Clara. The next report we're going to have is Advancement Committee report. Dolores, you're going to do that for us? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I do want to start off by saying we did send a communication piece to our donors last week. It did come from Dr. Andrew Jonas. It was a simple email, really just sharing what the campus was doing, but we wanted to let our donor database and our community know that we're being proactive and that, as Dr. Andrew Jonas indicated, our students are our first priority. And we actually didn't receive any feedback from that correspondence, but we will continue to keep our community abreast of changes as they happen. What I wanted to do was go over the last couple of pages in your packet. At the last board meeting, we introduced an advancement report to this to the board. And the format has changed a little bit since that meeting. The Advancement Committee continuously reviews this report, and we're trying to enhance it and make it easier to understand and to also demonstrate productivity in terms of fundraising. So what we have here on the top are the first 2 quarter numbers. So you can see what we've raised in unrestricted dollars and restricted dollars in our totals. And then we do a year-to-date comparison to the prior fiscal year. The Advancement Committee indicated the importance of seeing that, and we look at that all the time in our office as well to sort of gauge how we're doing one year to the next. One item I'd like to point out is you can see the number of constituents giving is I would say significantly less from last year. That's actually a good thing that we're paying attention to this, because that gives us an area to focus on. So as we're continuing to develop annual giving plans, these type of metrics, because they're now in a report, help us kind of gauge which direction we should be going in. And in addition, we create a solicitation plan for the year, but periodically looking at these things will help us retain donors from year to year. The one thing that I also wanted to point out is under expected pledge payments, we don't have anything for the prior fiscal year. It's not that we weren't collecting on pledges, but we were still in the campaign and still securing pledges. So we wanted to give you an idea of what the number, the dollar amount that we expect each year and the percentage of securing those pledge payments. So far, even though we're at 74%, that's in. Really, our pledges are spread out throughout the year because we got them at different times. So I anticipate being at 100% by June 30th in terms of payments, but we're pretty close. And then I wanted to point out the unrestricted giving. As you can see, the numbers are significantly less. Every year at the end of the fiscal year, Bobby goes to the Board of Trustees and asks for the Southern California radio station gift to be redirected and deposited, not deposited, but we do an adjustment to change that to unrestricted dollars. The number for the last fiscal year indicates that change already, but the number for this fiscal year does not, because we have not made that request. Let's see. So then we also wanted to give you a picture of the type of work that we're doing. So several donors will come to us, or as Nancy and I and Bobby continue to work with donors, they want to set up their own funds, mostly scholarship funds. But what you'll see here on the next page is any new funds that have been established this fiscal year. And then we could kind of give you a snapshot of donor types, so our donors by individuals, organizations, corporations, third parties, and nonprofits. We also give you a snapshot of all of our new donors, so first-time donors to the foundation. And then the last page is board giving. So we keep, it's really important for us to be able to go to funders, especially individuals, but especially foundations, want to know what percentage of your board is giving. We like to report out every year that that's 100%. So this report indicates where we are, and that's 100% of unrestricted giving. So those on the board will likely recall that our unrestricted gift is a minimum of $1,000 per year. So if you've given that, you'll see a yes next to your name in the unrestricted column, but you'll also see the percentage of board members who have made that gift to date. If you haven't, you can go ahead and send it in, or we'll be following up with you shortly. But in addition to everybody else, fundraising is fluid too, and especially annual giving depends on the state of the economy. Annual giving is usually what's left. It's not, people aren't pulling out of their portfolios to make an annual gift. So we will be mindful in our office of the steps that we need to take during this time, and where we need to kind of change our thought process and our strategy with donors. But one thing we will do is to stay in front of our donors. We will continue to have consistent communication. We might not be asking them for money, but we will continue to reach out, to stay in front of them, to thank them for their support. We will start to get creative in analyzing some of our donor giving, just to capitalize on that when things start to quiet down. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Dolores. Great report. I guess I would just add that it's really important that we get 100% from our board, and I would encourage you to, as soon as you're able, to get your deposits in or your gifts in before the end of the fiscal year. So thank you very much for that. Next, we'll go to scholarship, and Greg, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bill. The Scholarship/Sponsorship Committee has been charged with coming up with a recommendation for a sponsorship program to fill financial needs of many of the students at PCC. And our committee has met twice so far with various administrators who are in charge of the departments providing services to our students. And I think they're all under the purview of Dr. Olivo. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That includes the Veterans Center, the Transfer Center, and a number of other departments. And common message that our committee has heard is that so many of the students at PCC have unmet financial needs, even for basic things like food, housing, transportation, in addition to their academic supplies and equipment. And so it's been a very emotional and revealing needs assessment process that we've been going through. So our next step to keep it going is for the committee to meet, come up with a recommendation as to what we want to budget to fund this program and what specific things we want to help fund. It is my hope, and I know Dr. Andrew Jonas has a very full plate, but we would like to align our recommendation with the goals of the college as well. So if there's a chance to meet with you at some point, we'd love to do that. And then we'll be making a recommendation to the XCOM and to the full board and hopefully get something underway. So thank you.
I will make this brief since we're running over time. But first of all, thank you for going through this awkwardness with us in trying to figure out what the new normal is for our organization. As we go forward, I'm expecting that we'll probably have more and more social distancing. So we will definitely be offering Zoom attendance at all of our committee meetings. So as Dr. Andrew Jonas mentioned, we are closed to the public starting tomorrow. So our meeting schedule will continue as it is set right now, but we will just make sure that everyone has the opportunity to join remotely. So this is a great learning curve for everyone to learn how to use that Zoom technology, and I highly encourage it. I will say that we've been in touch with the Boone family. One of our biggest events coming up was going to be the Boone Achievement Awards. And we even had a luncheon scheduled for the 19th to engage our faculty in that. We've let them know that we're going to be doing that by email. Right now, we still have the Boone Achievement Awards on the schedule, and we will make that decision as we go. I think the way PCC is handling all this is absolutely perfect. We are doing small steps and reevaluating and letting people know when we're going to be reevaluating what's coming up next, so the foundation will follow suit with that. And I will tell you, I think I was on vacation last week, so all of this happened while I was staring at sloths in Costa Rica, which is quite poetic, I think. But I will tell you that the temperature on the campus is remarkable. People are working together so well. I am in communication mostly with the 80 or so other managers on the campus. We had a meeting yesterday. Everyone is in lockstep to get this done. So I'm really, really proud of the way everyone here is responding. I am giving our staff an opportunity to work remotely to encourage the social distancing. I expect I'll have probably 3 or 4 that will take us up on it. As we are right now, the managers, Dolores, Chris, and I will all be in our offices every day. But we will send out an updated list of cell phone numbers just to make sure that you can reach us at any time. We will continue business as usual. It will just be a little bit more awkward than usual, so I just want to thank you for your patience. And before I step off, I do want to say publicly thank you to Hoyt Hilsman, who has been an amazing trustee liaison for us. And we will continue to engage Hoyt. He has been a wonderful voice on the Business Council. We are going to continue that with him, and I look forward to having a conversation with him about how we will continue to engage him with the foundation. So that's my report.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you, everybody, for your participation and attendance today. This has been an experience for us, and I think we learned a lot from this, don't you?
So we did.
Yeah, we did. Okay, great. So I have nothing further to add. I think that I would be just redundant in terms of, expressing my appreciation for the report that we got from Dr. Bush and the various other committee reports. I think it was just a very productive meeting. I thank you very much, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody. Stay healthy. Well, overall, not bad.